Guess they can see this.
Yeah, I always try to sit where I'm not gonna have to look at my face.
Pro tip.
Following you though. Painful. Can't really escape.
We are ready?
All right, so, welcome to the May 14, 2026 meeting of the Health, Education and Environment Committee. My name is Rupal Kakad and I'm the chair of the committee. Tonight, we are joined by Assistant District Manager Brendan Berth. This meeting is called to order at 6:45 PM. As a reminder, New York State law requires all committee members who are not able to attend the meeting in person to have their cameras on and their first and last names displayed from the time the meeting is called to order until the time the meeting is adjourned. Members of the public who are attending virtually, you can raise any questions or comments that you have through Q&A feature of Zoom. Members of the public who are here in person, you can raise any questions that you have by raising your hand. If there's time following the committee's discussion, we will field questions from the public. We need a volunteer to take minutes tonight. If you are able to take minutes, please let us know.
I don't think I've done it yet at first.
But I think you did the last month, or you're working on the last months, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brendan, can we do the same thing we did on Monday?
Yeah, with the AI.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're trying like an AI.
Okay,
I'll do it.
All
I
right,
didn't,
all right. Where was I?
but I didn't bring anything to speak of.
Yeah, I think they send out the,
Or to do, like,
I think they send out the,
template.
yeah.
Or
and
in
everything.
the, what do you call it?
Yeah,
Oh my gosh. You know.
Yeah.
Transcript.
transcript, yeah, they send out the
No, no, no,
transcript,
yeah,
yeah.
we tried something at the budget meeting. but
Oh.
I don't.
All right.
Well, anyway,
All right, so we will now take attendance by roll call. Brendan will conduct the roll call.
Committee members, I will call your name. Your name is called, please say present. I'll announce if there is quorum. Marty Barrett. And Marty said that he was having some technical.
Yeah, I thought I saw him there earlier. Yeah.
He's
Uh,
waving his hand.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we'll count you as on Zoom, but present. Ellie Barosa,
President.
Liz Burr,
Present.
Stu Desser,
Here.
Rob Friedman is excused, Gloria Haig,
Present.
Rabia Iqbal is absent, so is Kyle Tide. Rupal Kakad,
Present.
Kate Kennedy,
present.
Katie Landa,
Present.
Kevin O'Keefe is excused, Rubin Siddiqui is also excused, and Kat Valero.
Present.
Okay, with, we do not have a quorum, just means we can't vote on any resolutions.
Okay, and I think we don't have last month's meeting yet either, so we can't vote on those yet either. We'll do that next month.
Correct.
All right, so the agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and is reflected on the screen before you. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the agenda, please raise your hand. Seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. I already gave the update on the minutes, so I reversed the order. All right, so some ground rules. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. No one may speak until the floor. Committee members who are here in person, if you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand and I will identify you so you can speak. Committee members unable to attend in person, if you have a question about committee business, you may raise your hand through Zoom and I will identify you so you can speak. All committee members, it is extremely important that only one person speak at a time so that members of the public watching at home can understand what is being said by each committee member. The chat function for committee members present via Zoom should not be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you are having or to state in writing information like an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. So tonight's agenda, we have the New York City Public School District 2 Superintendent Brendan McGuire here. So
Thanks for having me.
thank you for being here. So I think we sent you some questions, a lot of them.
You did.
It felt like, but so yeah, if you want to say anything before or.
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to
I mean, would you like to, I can just give like a quick overview of like where we're at with things.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. We have ended a very stressful time in New York City Public Schools, which is the testing season. So we're gotten out of that and gotten kids tested. This year, all of our students have tested using online exams. And so that was a big shift for our schools. We're also in the beginning of starting to launch the work that we're doing next year, which is really an expansion of our NYC Reads initiative and a continuation of NYC Solves initiative. In NYC Reads, we are expanding in a couple of different ways. We've implemented this initiative in elementary school by including more foundational literacy programs and a new curriculum. We're in the two ways in which we're expanding next year is that we're looking to build more opportunities for intervention and small group instruction to serve students at all different grade levels, students who struggle and students who are accelerated. I know that was one of the kind of topics that was here in the content. And we are also beginning to implement a new core curriculum with our middle school students in literacy. Different schools are doing that a little bit differently, but our curriculum really hasn't been looked at in quite a while. And there's a great opportunity to be able to bring our school resources in alignment and recalibrate toward really high quality instruction. As many people know also, the school budget, where it seems like we're maybe getting a little bit closer to that. Schools haven't received their individual budgets. But a couple of big factors weighing in on that are the final decision around how it is that schools across New York City are going to adopt class size reduction. Here in District 2, we have like a couple of different stories going on depending on where it is in your neighborhood. In Community Board 6, we've got a couple of different things going on. We have some schools, a very small number of schools, that are fully able to comply with class size reduction. And then we've got a lot of challenges here in CB6. We've got a lot of very popular schools. And so the kind of question that we're waiting on a little bit and the issues that we're grappling with are when we do receive the school budgets, how is it that those school budgets might reflect a commitment to moving forward and advancing class size reduction? Our schools are not able to just do that in Community Board 6. Our schools are not able to do that with the current levels of funding. But with a little bit of funding, we can move closer to the goal. Presently, the goal is 80% of classrooms across the city for next year. But we are hearing that that's going to be expanded and stretched out a little bit and not sure exactly what the target is going to be for the coming year. But that's a big part of the work that is going to need to be happening in our schools. And along with that, there's kind of like 3 different buckets that we're thinking about how it is that we can reduce class size. In some buildings, there are some changes to the way that students are programmed. Could be as easy as an empty classroom that is not yet ready for instruction, but could be ready for instruction. It could also be reprogramming so that teachers are sharing rooms and a classroom that might sit empty for 3 periods a day. Students could be programmed into that classroom. So you're kind of effectively increasing the number of sections per course that you're teaching. So that's like one bucket. Another one is work around thinking about school utilization. So given the present number of buildings and classrooms and spaces that we have in the district, how might we reuse or reallocate those spaces to comply with class size reduction? Are there mergers? Are there splits? Are there moving one building from a school that's bigger into another school that has space? That's kind of like the second type of bucket of work. And then the third one is we just don't have the space. And so we need to acquire more. So a lot of that work happens at the central level. As the community superintendent, I am certainly asked for my feedback and ideas about how that works, as well as brainstorming different strategies. But really a lot of it is working with the community and hearing the community and both teachers and staff, parents, and trying to figure out how that might work. So those are like three different ways that we're beginning to think about it. Another big topic, just moving away a little bit from class size reduction for a second, is we're expanding early childhood access in our schools. We've opened a brand new, a little bit north of you, a brand new pre-K center that was originally going to have 8 classes, 4 of 3K and 4 of pre-K. Now it's going to have 7 of 3K and 4 of pre-K. And I say that in part, even if it's just a little bit north of Community Board 6, that it's, you know, kind of affects everybody, and the families can rank that site as one of their, or have been ranking that site as one of their choices. And we haven't eliminated 3K or pre-K in any of our community schools either. It's not that we're moving those programs out of community schools and into pre-K centers. We have that much need in our district for these programs. And so we're kind of like constantly trying to feed that. And consequently, I think that we're going to be in a much better place in the coming year at being able to serve 3K and pre-K. But that's a big deal. It's almost, I mean, the new pre-K center is going to be almost 200 students. So it's almost like a brand new school, but it's just one site of 10 that exist across the district. We've got a couple of retirements that are happening in the district. That's a really big deal. Just north of you, PS 267, Medea McAvoy has been around for a long time in Battery Park City. Ronnie Nager is retiring after over 20 years as principal. I think her first week was 9/11/2001. So
Wow.
quite the transition into that. In Chelsea, Bob Bender is retiring after 20 years as principal. So, you know, folks have been in these roles for a long time, but we feel really fortunate that we have a good group of school leaders that are able to jump in and continue to support that. We're still sifting. Is this too much?
No.
Okay. All right.
This is really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're still sifting through enrollment a little bit. One thing with Baruch Middle School is they have 2 different programs in their school. They have a general education zoned program, and then they have an accelerated program. They are looking at whether or not they're going to expand that accelerated program to another section in order to accommodate students. We're really happy about Baruch's enrollment is that over the last 2 years, they've increased in their enrollment. And this time, and we're more than happy to support the large number of students and families seeking asylum in the district. Lots of kids were supported and well served, I think, in Community Board 6 schools. I only say this to say that some people were attributing any kind of enrollment increase just solely to the increase in number of students seeking asylum, but we're really not seeing that kind of enrollment anymore. The number is really dwindled down to a very, very small number of kids. So, but we're happy that the school's enrollment continue to grow. Yeah, and I think maybe with that, I'll stop and see if there are other topics that you. I mean, it was substance abuse was a issue. Serving students with special needs. I'm happy to just like go through your email if you want me to, or if you want to ask individual questions.
Yeah, so Marty has a question. Let's take Marty's question and then I'll go after him.
Besides finding space for the additional classrooms for the reduced size of each class, how many teachers short are you? And what's the prospect of actually hiring them?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I can't say specifically for Community Board 6. I do know that if we are to meet class size across the district, actually, if we were to, it's not that to meet class size across the district, schools had to submit a plan earlier this year as to how it is that they would go about reducing class size with the physical space that they have and creative programming. If all of those applications and proposals were accepted, it would be an increase of over 300 teachers that we would need to hire just for our district, which would be a lot. But I'm not entirely sure for Community Board 6. I just wanted to give that like caveat that it would be 300 teachers and connected to the proposals because some schools are not able to do any kind of class size reduction. So their proposal was acknowledge that, that it just, we would love to hire more teachers, but we can't do anything with them to reduce class size. So yeah, 300 across the district.
I'm a product of the New York City schools and CUNY, and I did okay. And in my day, which is a long, long time ago, class sizes were 30 to 40 kids. Are there any real statistics in showing that smaller classes are better?
Yeah, well, there are a few studies that are often cited, and I think that it depends a little bit on what outcome you're looking for. If we are there certainly is the issue of teacher quality, which is so important and most important for students who are English language learners, students with disabilities. That factor of a high quality teacher is incredibly important for that group of students, especially. But when you start to like sift out the different variables, it gets a little bit tricky. I've seen one study where if you drop the number of students in a classroom to 20 or lower, then that accounts for any kind of like variability in teacher quality. There are certainly issues that I think connect to being able to run a high quality school system, including teacher retention. That's an issue that we're like thinking about a lot. We want to be able to grow our high quality teachers when they are coming in and make sure that they're growing to be like true master teachers. And a working environment that includes a smaller class, I think is greatly appreciated. One of the statistics that I can talk about that's kind of live right now in terms of what is happening in our district is the number of behavioral incidences has dropped dramatically. And that includes a number of long-term suspensions and shorter principal suspensions has really dropped quite significantly in the district. So, I do think that student learning is probably the data point that we all are really looking to. That one just gets a little bit more complicated, I think.
Thank you.
Yes.
So one of the things we were discussing and something that's a little bit more time sensitive for us as a committee is we have to pick a topic for district needs for the youth and education portion of it. So as a committee, we kind of discussed it, and the three we kind of landed on were the ones that we emailed you about. Given our district, given CB6, do you feel like any of those really like is an important issue for this district, or do you think it's something that we didn't even mention here?
No. And just to be, I see adolescent substance abuse, school and educational facilities, and support for students with special needs. Is that?
Yeah, that's the one, yeah, and then those three.
Yeah, well, I did poll the principals who are in the district and they mentioned facilities for sure.
Facilities
It
is
was at the top of their
okay.
issue. Now, like, I see capacity is specifically mentioned in parentheses. there are some other facilities issues that people mentioned, lots of, plumbing that could use upgrades, water fountains, bathrooms, that kind of thing. But I also think that doing some this, and this is not necessarily like building a whole new school or anything, but there are some projects that are out there that really do need a push and support to maximize space in buildings. I'm sure some people are familiar with like the program. I'm not looking at over at Rachel, but at Salk, you know, they have a plan that's with the facilities office to add and remove walls to increase the number of classrooms. And so those kinds of projects, I think, are important to make sure that they're lifted up and raised as important things. The other thing that just like often comes up in schools is support for after-school programs. And while middle schools have a very set and reliable after-school program and funding, elementary schools don't. And so that is often a real challenge, especially, you know, obviously the schools serve students of diverse socioeconomic backgrounds, and these are often, you know, for fee after-school programs. And so being able to do more with scholarships and things like that is important.
And that is specifically for elementary schools, you said, right? The
Yes.
after-school programs?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, that's a big initiative that would just be so beneficial to so many of our schools.
Just out of curiosity, the new pre-K,
Yeah.
3K center, does that have any after-school programming at that center?
Minimal,
Mhm.
but there is, they are going to have some. And there's a special license that providers have to obtain. And many of the after-school providers don't have it. That special license allows them to serve students as young as 3. But the principal of who's running that site has actually done a lot of work at one of our other sites. And so I actually think it's funny. They're not playing tennis, but I think it's the New York Junior Tennis League is actually running some after-school activities at the new site. Again, not tennis, but it's just like that's the organization.
All right. Stu has a question.
Oh, Stu has a multiplicity of questions, but we'll start with a really fundamental one. When you hire new teachers, what does that do to the average amount of experience each teacher has throughout the system? In other words, you're hiring teachers who are probably less experienced. You talked about quality, and I mean it's a little bit. I'm not saying you've been insulting, but it feels a little wrong to say, well, if you're inexperienced, you don't have the same quality. But we do know that experience makes a big difference. So hiring new teachers sort of waters down the degree of experience of the teacher population. So what does that actually do in the real world?
Yeah, I'll answer that like 2 different things about that. One, I do think that hiring new teachers does mean that the school really needs to think about what the infrastructure is to support those new teachers professionally. And you know, we have some amazing teachers that just come right out of school, jump into a classroom and are doing an incredible job. But there are many things that new teachers have to learn: classroom management, relationships with their colleagues, planning, I mean, all of the different things that are required to become a really great teacher. And so that does require a lot from both school leaders, who often end up serving as both the coach and the evaluator. So there's a bit of infrastructure that needs to be built when a school brings on new teachers. MS 104 did, Baruch Mennel, did a huge initiative last year, to reduce class size. They reduced class size across their entire sixth grade. And they hired 20 new teachers and, to the school. Everybody who I talked to, their teachers and school leaders alike, they say this has been really fantastic for the building. The one thing that I'll say about, the other thing that I'll say about hiring new teachers is that we are very fortunate in our district to be a district that is highly sought after by teachers and also accessible. And so when we have a posting, we get a lot of resumes. There are definitely some higher, difficult to fill positions, special education, mathematics, sciences are harder. But we usually have a lot of people to choose from, and thankfully, teachers who are, and this is not, I'm not saying this is great for the system as a whole, but teachers who are working in other districts who are looking for a change often look to ours. There's a period of open transfer that we're in right now, actually, where teachers from whatever district in the city can apply to another posted position. And that goes for people who are currently working for New York City Public Schools, people who are working for charter schools. We get a lot of teachers who have had experience prior to coming to their building, to their new position, because they've had experience in other districts and charter schools.
What else, Stu?
I want to give LV a chance because I will hog the rest of the session otherwise.
All right, Elvie, you're up.
But you're muted, LV.
You're still
You're
muted.
on mute, Elby.
Yeah, all right. So thank you for coming to our meeting.
For sure.
I would like to know what protocols do you have for protecting students and families for potential immigration enforcement?
So, and just, you said what protocols do we have for protecting students from immigration enforcement?
Yes.
Yeah, so there are a couple of different things that we are doing and that we have in place, and this has been in place for the past couple of years. One is that the city legal office has laid out a very clear set of protocols that both school safety agents, secretaries, parent coordinators, principals, assistant principals, that everybody is aware of as to how it is that they would respond if an immigrations and customs enforcement agent were to come to a school. They know very well that they should contact a team of lawyers that principals regularly have access to, inform them that an agent is at the building, and then find out whether or not there is any additional documentation, warrants, that kind of thing. And if there are, then that needs to be reviewed by the legal office immediately. We don't give out any student information, and we don't permit agents to come into the building. So that's kind of on like the front end of things. On the back end of things, and this isn't necessarily working how it is that we work directly when we are faced with an agent, but when we do hear about families that have been broken up because a parent has been arrested, then we do have a protocol that is in place where another parent or adult that is caring for the children can reach out to the school, and then the school can tap into a network of legal aid for that parent. And that legal aid can then, organizations can then work directly with the parent and their family. So that's kind of on the back end. I am, very thankful that we haven't had any incidences with immigration agents coming to schools. We haven't had to put that protocol into place. We absolutely have connected lots of families with this structure of legal support because one of the parents or caregivers had been arrested and was being detained. For a while, that felt like it was happening multiple times a week on the schools.
Thank you.
Yes.
Katie, did you have a question before we go back to Stu?
No, my question was similar to Elfie's.
All right,
Thank you.
Stu, you're up again.
So, I actually, my reflex is sort of like, Marty's, that, reducing class size is helpful. I mean, I've heard that from enough people who actually know what they're talking about, not just me. But it's not the solution, it's just part of a solution. And as you know, education, schools have been criticized for 150 or 200 years in this country. And I don't think the criticism is without warrant. I believe that we need to experiment. We need to have some laboratory schools or laboratory programs as part of an after school, which would allow you to do things like actually produce have a control group basically and an experimental group. But I mean, I want to see change. The simplest things are just co-teaching, a science teacher and a social studies teacher in the same room, and they're making connections between these different things. We know different people seem to learn different ways. They get engaged by different things. So I should stop asking the question now and wait to hear your answer. But you understand the gist of it is what we are doing, and not in New York City, I mean, every place, is not really working. And we're sort of stuck with convention. I know there have been experimental programs, there have been laboratory schools that have actually succeeded, but it never bleeds out to the rest of the community. So I'd like to, I'll stop there and I'll let you talk. You're our guest.
Sure. Well, I don't disagree with you that trying new things is really important. When charter schools were initially became a thing, like that was kind of the intention, is that they would have some flexibility to try things out in a work environment that was that didn't include collective bargaining, and they could play around with the school day and different things like that. Really were like intended to be these small lab sites. Yeah, I mean, I do think that we are learning, I think, a bit more about the kind of conditions that we have within our control to really try to advance and grow achievement. There are, when you think about like how it is that we're evaluating and thinking about schools, it's not always solely about test scores though, right? Like, or test scores and safety. It's test scores and safety and strong, rich social emotional programs, lots of field trips, arts and creativity, like all of those factors, I think are really important, are good for kids and also really important to families. But you know, the data in our district seems to be pointing in a really good direction since the adoption of some strong literacy programs and math programs that are really focused on the outcomes that are being evaluated through state exams. For a long time, you know, teachers did some great things creatively, but there were times when the work wasn't necessarily centered on the outcomes that we were trying to achieve. And so I think that we're in this place, not where we want to eliminate that in any kind of way, because that is like the special sauce that I think makes kids love classrooms. But we do want to make sure that whatever it is that we're teaching is aligned to the outcomes that we're shooting for. And I think also is putting together learning in kind of in a logical way, that there are skills that build upon each other. There are ways of building connections that help to advance bigger ideas. So, and I love what you're saying about co-teaching. I mean, that also is like great too. The biggest way in which we see co-teaching in our district is with students with mild learning disabilities, integrated co-teaching classrooms. With the new class size, it's, you know, about 23 students total, 8 or 9 students who have IEPs, that and 2 teachers who are well-trained, can make a really big difference in those students, all of those students that are in classrooms.
All right, Gloria.
I know this might be a little strange question. I'm wondering, because our society has changed dramatically in like the past 10 years, where truth isn't truth anymore. It can be argued, where division and hatred has become just normal. And I know New York's kind of its own little island and, you know, isolation. I'm just wondering if young people are, because resilience is a big thing. Do you see any kind of effects that what's happening outside the classroom in this world and country we're in right now affecting students? Because social, emotional, and civic learning is extremely important.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard when we're being told that the truth is not the truth, or that there's 2 truths, right?
Yeah. No,
I'm just
sure.
wondering if, I mean, maybe I could ask someone in another state, but it'd be nice to know if any of that's kind of seeping in.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm just like pointing to 2 things. I mean, there's a lot of things that, and I don't know if the answer to the question necessarily, but I can say that, you know, I do think that the cell phone ban in schools has been like really good. And that certainly is a way that misinformation or information that we don't want kids to have, even if it's like amongst them for their friends, we don't want them to have it in school, like during the school day. I think that that's been a really positive thing, and we've seen a lot more time on task, and kids doing things that are, I think we all will probably point to as healthier. And then the other thing that is like, you know, we're really in the midst of, and it's, I know it is like a controversial topic right now, but I feel okay talking about it because it's controversial for everybody, but artificial intelligence is like another big thing. So I guess like when you were talking a little bit about supporting students to become critical thinkers and like good evaluators of information and experiences, I first thought of artificial intelligence and what can show up in on a cell phone or on a computer screen that can't be verified. And yeah, and we do need to support students so that they really question whether or not what they're seeing is real. I think you're also probably referencing something like a bucket of like different comments and things that are said that where students are, having to like decide whether or not what they're hearing on the radio or they're reading in the paper is like real also. But the good thing is that I think that we're set up, and I think become more set up to be able to curate that stuff, the materials that kids have interaction with, and point them toward like high quality sources. But I hear what you're saying. It's a real challenge. Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
We'll go to Marty and then we'll come back to you.
Sure.
All right.
There's also like a member of the
Yeah.
public who's been here for a while.
Marty, you go first and then. we'll
Okay,
come to you.
about 20 years ago, I worked for Sports and Arts in Schools Foundation, New York Junior Tennis League.
Yeah.
One of there was a couple of challenges in getting contracts in different schools. Some had to do with the budget that the principals had for after-school activities. They tended to want to have tutoring, which we did do specifically towards testing, so that the school did well in tests. And so rather than have a broader program, that's what they wanted to deal with. And another factor was the facilities manager, the super of the building, didn't necessarily want this or didn't want that, or had a time frame that they wanted to close the building down as of a such and such time, and the program couldn't work within the time frame. How has any of that been resolved, or it's just part of the problem still? Or?
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing is that 10, 12 years ago, the city did move toward the adoption of an out of school time program that DYCD, Department of Youth and Community Development, calls Compass. It's a comprehensive after school program that involves academics, sports, arts, and other activities for kids. This is a fully funded program for all middle schools. And it became not something that the principal needed to consider how to fund, either with their budget or PTA dollars. It was that program was fully funded. And then I do think also that, custodians that might not have been so keen on supporting a after-school program that was wide and used a lot of different rooms and spaces that needed to be maintained. It became an issue, or it became an initiative that didn't just sit with the principal, but sat with City Hall. So it became a lot easier. I know when I was a principal, it became a lot easier to say, well, this is the citywide program that we have here, and we're going to serve the number of kids that we're supposed to serve, which I think was maybe 160, 170 kids. And the hours are set. It's from 3 o'clock until 6 o'clock, including some weekend and programs that are held over vacations. So that was like quite helpful in moving all of that forward. I do think that in schools that, in elementary schools where there aren't such robust or citywide programs, that the principal still is doing some negotiating. But I also think that it's no longer a situation in which custodians of the building have such a strong role in making those decisions. I think that as a system, we have moved much more toward this understanding of what's good for kids, and these are programs that are really good for kids.
Go ahead, Kate.
Thanks so much for joining us today. So District 2 is really pretty geographically big, and CD6 is comparatively much smaller. But as you think, you're looking at schools across a really kind of broad geographic region of. And, you know, we've been talking a lot about making sure that there's a really healthy mix of schools for kids of every age as they move from a 3K all the way through high school, but within our small part of District 2. And that a lot of changes that could happen in terms of capacity could mean a kid has to go from like Chinatown all the way to Upper East Side now, right? And the impact that that would have then on their family. So, you know, you laid out your kind of 3 buckets at the beginning, and I was wondering, you know, for our small piece of that.
It's a pretty big piece.
Piece down to a Lower East Side, it's a lot smaller. So, you know, if you think about, I mean, I imagine that the buckets hit a little differently depending on where you are in District 2. So for our piece of it, I'm wondering like where you see a lot of the change really hitting in terms of meeting all the mandates, building at the capacity for all the kids who are educated in our district.
Yeah, it's a really good question. So generally, the school, I mean, I think it's probably like easiest just to talk about it a little bit, school by school. There are schools that are going to be tough in order to meet class size mandates. PS40 and SALT, we've certainly heard about and we've talked about. The River School PS281 is another one where it's difficult. PS59 is kind of dancing a little bit between being okay and being really on the edge. One of the things that gets interesting is that PS116 is in pretty good shape. I think 104 will be okay to an extent, but
A
they're
lot of
gonna
high
probably have a
schools
hard
too
time.
looked like they were pretty close or over.
Yeah, and I have less, you know, I only work really with 3K through 8th grade, except for the Clinton
Okay.
School.
Okay.
So I know those data most intimately. But Baruch Middle School will be able to make some progress, but it probably will be difficult to get to 100%. The kind of, so I would say in general, it's a little better than a little further north. Like further north is harder and almost impossible in some of the places. But what happens is that we have Roosevelt Island, PS217, PS267, which is a little further north, and sometimes PS281 that all start the year with kids on their kindergarten wait list. And Roosevelt Island also often has 6th graders on their 6th grade wait list. And so the impact of that is that it all kind of like trickles down. So if you can't get all of the kids who are on the PS267 wait list into PS267, then you start them at PS59, but at some point PS59 fills up, and then you go to the River School, and then at some point the River School fills up, and then you go up to PS183, which is a little further north. And so it's it does have a ripple effect, and those overflow factors I think do need to be like figured into the buildings in general. But when we're talking about, you know, trying to meet class size numbers, but you know, right now the biggest challenge that is in Community Board 6 is the PS40 building with PS40 and Salk, 2 highly sought after schools. And that's a challenge. And also the other thing is that there's not another like building in Community Board 6 that is kind of like an easy shift or move. And none of this is easy for sure, but I was I came from another meeting in Chinatown where we were like looking at the buildings in Chinatown and trying to figure out what might be supportive there. And the issue there is that over the last like 15 years, the number of families that live in the neighborhood has decreased enormously. And so we're not at that place where we're on those lists of schools that have 150 kids or fewer, but we are in a place where there's some schools that we should be, more students would enable us to provide a higher quality program. Smaller and smaller and smaller is not always better and better and better. So yeah, I hope that that kind of like answers it.
Yeah, I was wondering too how this dovetails with the effort to integrate schools. I know that the chancellor is really interested in that, and New York City is, I think, one of the most, has the most segregated schools in the country, I believe.
Yeah. I think, I mean, it kind of depends on, I think we're looking forward to like hearing what kind of message might come from either the chancellor's office or City Hall. There are, I think, opportunities to really think about integration in our district. But a lot of things have already happened that that we can point to as a bit of like some good, blueprints. The change in how students are screened for middle schools is a big shift. A lot of schools did enact diversity in admissions set-asides to ensure that they had their incoming students were a rate of poverty that was a little higher than they had traditionally done. But the chancellor's also talked a little bit about ways of integration that is not necessarily racial integration. And one of the ways that he's talked about and that we see a little bit of in our district is that of supporting students with disabilities in general programs. So in Community Board 6, we opened a new class at the River School to serve students with disabilities, and those students are both served part of the day in a small class, but many of them have skills and talents that enable them to be a part of the general education classroom for portions of the day. Those are other ways that we can think about like diversity around students with disabilities or English language learners, and that they don't need to be educated in a separate place. Yeah, I do also think that there's, we're all like knowing that we're kind of on the precipice of needing to do like something bigger in the city, specifically in relationship to class size. And we just don't quite know what the parameters of that are going to be or what the resources are going to be behind it. But with that, there are, I think, other opportunities for integration too.
So is there a plan, because as we go forward, there's a chance that we're gonna get more kids enrolled. And we already have a lower class size, and some of these schools are already at capacity. So is there a plan for expansion, or like, what is the plan, I guess? What is the plan for more kids enrolling now?
Yeah. Well, I think it, just going back to the two things that I had started with were like, looking at available spaces, and thinking about how to use available spaces to meet current needs. And then the other is building more schools. And I think both are being looked at really seriously. Yeah.
Stu, go ahead.
You looked like you hesitated when you said that. I just want to follow up or continue on the question of innovation. When you read about education, whether it's Dewey or Deborah Meyer or Diane Ravitch or the 8-year study from the 1920s and 30s, there are all these great ideas, and they never seem to actually get implemented. And a book I just read is called The Disengaged Teen, which is a very accessible book, but I so thoroughly identified with everyone in that book, every character in it, because it explained, I think, the reasons that education, and I went to New York City public schools too, and it explained why it didn't really work for me, or it didn't work as well as it could. So I'd like to see uh, um, more experimentation, more inviting neurobiologists, people who have worked with how the brain learns, behavioral psychology. So my question, rather than just a statement, is: would you be open to some sort of experimental project? And again, I mean, the way I would do it is integrate them into an after-school program. So you have the regular program during the day, and then in the evening you can have an experimental and control group, and you swap them back and forth, and you see if they do much better than just the students in the day program. And your control group can get conventional tutoring, and the experimental group can get whatever the experimental program is. So you can actually see if there are methods that work. And unlike having a discrete laboratory school where they prove something works, but then no one ever adopts it, you can do this within the regular infrastructure, the regular school buildings and so forth. Would you be open to something like that? And without getting specific now.
Yes, for sure. In fact, there are some, I mean, it's not necessarily initiated through kind of like the experimental lens, but there are school programs and partnerships that extend the school day and expose students and teach students new content and skills. But I think we'd be open to all kinds of different ways of thinking about how it is that we can, try different things out with kids. Of course, want to make sure that we're, working with strong organizations and that they've, taken student safety into consideration and are probably working with community-based organizations that have reputations in the system. But yes, I would be open to that.
So as a community board, we could try to bring something to you then, and you would consider it?
Yes, I mean, there are, I mean, I'd love to hear more about it.
I'm not saying we would do it. We're not educators, but I'm saying we could bring in organizations or concepts for your consideration.
Yes, I mean, I think that there are, yes, I would be more than open to hearing about it. There are obviously like different steps that we'd need to take, but I would be very open to looking at that and partnering with the community board on something like that.
Thanks.
Sure.
Right, let's go to Diane Grayson.
Okay, Diane, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, hi, I'm Diane Grayson. So I'm a parent in D2 and CB6. I have 2 kids in public school in pre-K and first. My pre-K child is a student at a Head Start, but he has a DOE seat. And my older one goes to PS40. And so both students are classified as having a disability. They have IEPs. And, I have lived in this district my entire life. And I have spoken to thousands, literally, of parents. And I really want to advocate for the fact that this district, the most pressing need is high quality wraparound care and after school programs for every single child in this district. Right now, my pre-K child has no after-school options, and my first grader has no affordable options. The cost of aftercare, because he's in a Head Start, even with a DOE seat, he finishes around 3:15. The average workday ends at 5, so there is a gap. That gap costs roughly $60,000 in this district because the after school and even summer programs are completely unaffordable. But that's just a program for a student who doesn't have any disabilities. So the average after school program for D2 is roughly like $14,000 minimum a year for one child. And it obviously goes up the more children you have. In our neighboring district in D1, they have affordable after school programs. Many a time it's subsidized or free. There are no options in our district for 3K, pre-K, K, first, lower school, middle school, which makes this district essentially inaccessible for the average person in New York City. I also want to mention, because both of my kids are classified as student disability, there is not a single program, whether it's paid or unpaid in this district, of aftercare for them. My older son did go for 1 day a week to the school program, and it was not a good fit. And there simply are no other options. So he is a DOE student who is essentially being failed, and he's not the only one. But the fact that whether it's a paid or free option, neither exists for students with disabilities in this district. And that is such a pressing need. I also want to mention that for students who are not classified as disability, they also face an economic barrier. So I know many parents personally who can barely afford to live in this district, and they all are from this district. Because the cost, not only cost of living, but the cost of childcare is exorbitant. And like I mentioned, even if it goes till 2:30, also my younger son who's in pre-K, his program goes till 3:15, but the average DOE public school ends around 2:30. That leaves a 2 to 3 hour gap to find an individual who can babysit or an aftercare program, because for 3K, pre-K, that's not possible. To find someone who can do that, and for the full year, if you actually want to hire an individual for babysitting or anything like that, you're talking like $60,000 to $80,000 a year. I know families in this district, who have tried to get childcare, and it's simply unaffordable. So if the lowest cost is maybe $15,000 to $20,000 for a family, and the high end is $80,000, how is any family in this district supposed to participate? How can kids flourish when they do not have that wraparound activities and options? And like I said, for students with disabilities, there are no options, whether it's paid or unpaid. There are zero. There's also, I want to really highlight that, this is not just a 3K, pre-K elementary school issue. In this district, we do not have a 3K to grade 12 fully funded option. And I'm very fortunate that my older son got a seat at Summer Rising. He did Summer Rising last year. That is the only program in our district that supports his IEP needs. And so we looked into other programs, even if it's paid, and he would not be accommodated. So I think it's really important to highlight the fact with Summer Rising, he has friends who are classified as student disabilities. They did not get a Summer Rising seat, and their parents do not know what to do. Their parents, how can you work? And how can your student flourish? How can your child flourish if there's literally no options? So, there's also the issue of, for middle schoolers and older students, we do not have a comprehensive after-school program. We have things like Summer Rising for the summer, and then for the entire year, we just have nothing. It doesn't make any sense because we live in New York City, we live in Manhattan. There are incredible organizations all around us. And, every nonprofit and every single organization in our district should be partnering with our public schools. Because they already do for D1 and other districts. Third Street Music, Alvin Ailey, there is such incredible opportunity here. It doesn't make any sense why a student who is interested in arts or STEM or music or anything, who can't afford it, has literally no options. And that goes double for students with disabilities, and so it's 7:49 right now. My children, have been with my husband, and, I really want to emphasize the fact that, there are many parents who would like to be here tonight and echo this statement, but they can't because they're literally, with their children. And I am fortunate enough that my husband can be with them right now, but there are many parents who can't. And I know a lot of single parents in this district who literally have no childcare options. And I really want to emphasize that this is the most pressing need. Every single student, 3K to grade 12, needs quality aftercare and opportunities, especially at the lower and middle school level, and especially for students with disabilities, because there is literally nothing. And I want to know, what can be done for students like my children and my children's friends who have no options.
It was actually one of the, I don't know if you were on at the start of the meeting, but this was one of the top 3 priorities that I recommended as well, both for advocacy on behalf of the community board. It's something that I say every time I see an elected official, and have been actually for a bunch of years, the need for comprehensive after school. And I mean, the only thing I can say is that just in regard to Summer Rising, we are trying to be much more systematic about pulling kids off of wait lists and getting them into seats. And we actually have a central team that's focused solely on that, because principals who have historically been in charge of making waitlist offers are also still principaling their schools during the school year. So having a central team do that, but I couldn't agree with you more. And I love the idea of having wraparound comprehensive services for students with disabilities and not. District 1 has, we have a couple of schools in our district where the rate of poverty is quite high. And because of that, they do have a fully funded after-school program in elementary school. But in our district, the poverty rate in general, the rate of students who receive free or reduced lunch is quite low. And so consequently, we have a lot of schools that have 4-fee programs, and they are incredibly expensive.
Yeah. And I mean, I definitely echo what you're saying. And it's really frustrating because for the families that are not able to afford it, there are no options. And it's not even possible to go to a neighboring D1 school for after school, for middle school. And there's a lot of middle schoolers, especially in our neighborhood, who really would be a part of, comprehensive, amazing programming if they had the option to do that. And the final thing I'll say is also in terms of things like Summer Rising, students with disabilities, there's lots of obviously different kinds of disabilities and needs. And my son has a friend who could go to Summer Rising, but physically can't easily get to the location because we're in D2. And, the closest option is basically Houston Street for, what he could do. That's 20 blocks. And that's not really possible for him. He goes to the local school and it's only a block from his house. So, I also just want to mention, like you were saying, in terms of diversity, and integration. And, I think that the committee, the Board of Education also needs to be really mindful of the fact that, students in this district have very different socioeconomic needs and abilities. And, it's not fair to many students in this district that not only is there, no Summer Rising seats or no after school options, but there's no options at all that are even, accessible. So, I just want to mention that, we have all these schools in our district. Every single one should have some kind of Summer Rising program because it's the summer. It doesn't make sense. Like my older son, who's in first grade, goes to PS40. PS40 should have a Summer Rising program that would allow his friend to be able to attend Summer Rising and attend a camp in the summer. It's not fair that students are limited to whatever options they may or may not get that happens to be, around. Especially if those options are just too far. And like someone said in the meeting, D2 is all the way from, Chinatown to Upper East Side. So that's a really big problem, just in terms of transportation. And yeah, so the final, I appreciate that. I just really cannot emphasize it enough how badly the need is. And it's causing a lot of stress for families who remain, who are multi-generational especially. And, my hope is that this is really elevated as a priority. And I would love to speak with you, and others further about it. I don't want to take up too much time on this meeting, but,
Sure.
it is a real pressing need, and especially, for middle schoolers, for lower schoolers, and kids with disabilities. And it's really impossible. And it's really impossible for a lot of students to flourish here. And I think we can easily make some changes that would really unlock that potential. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Emma. And I'm
Thank
very
you. Yeah, thank you.
Right. So is it like, I didn't go to New York City public schools. I'm an immigrant, was in California, and I moved here as an adult. So is there an option for like these after school programs that she talked about where it's basically needs based? So if you cannot afford to pay, you either don't have to, or you pay partial, like based on needs, they determine whether you pay 100% versus 0 or anywhere in between. Does New York City not have that as an option?
not as a comprehensive strategy or policy. Yeah, there are schools that work with community-based organizations that are running after-school programs that some do have a sliding scale, but not all. And there is a bit of a threshold in a school where if you cross it, then maybe the school is able to tap into a fully funded program. But there's a lot of schools that are just kind of in the middle and average. And even in a school like she said that her kids attend PS40, 500 kids at PS40. If the rate of students who receive free and reduced lunch is even 20%, that's 100 kids who can't or would have a harder time affording after school. And in that building I do know that it's expensive. I don't know that these organizations, people who run the after school organizations aren't, rolling in the dollars either. I think that they're, often subsidizing programs and some scholarships. And I do think that some of these programs need additional support from the government, the city, or
Well, so Stu and also Rachel.
Stu, go ahead.
So this will be smaller than my other questions. One of the downsides of small schools is the loss of efficiency of scale. So, when I went to school, I think there were 4,500 kids in my high school, and there were lots of different programs and electives, and that's a good thing. Do you have some way where students that are in the same campus but in different schools can share some of the classes, some of the electives? And before you answer that, I just want to have the opportunity to say thank you. I really appreciate your being here. I'm sure we all do. It's been terrific.
Sure. Yeah, no, thanks very much. I'm happy to do it. In our district, we don't have very many co-located schools. There are just a couple, and in those buildings, they often will share personnel, but it's usually an elementary school and a middle school that is co-located together. So sharing programs isn't necessarily feasible, but sharing and having kids attend classes together from the two schools isn't necessarily feasible, but certainly the sharing of staff is a very real thing. And we also just, in our district, the biggest school is 11 or 1200 kids. So, and that's a standalone school. So in this district, we don't have, so many opportunities for that, but I too can vouch. My daughter goes to Edward R. Murrow in Brooklyn, and there's about 4,000 kids who go to the school, and there's a lot of different programs that she's been able to participate in her high school career. So it's been great.
Nick, you had a question?
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you so much
Yeah.
for all of that you've done. I mean, you're always so generous with your time and your
Yeah.
engagement. And I just really wanted to say thank you for that. A couple of questions. One, you mentioned about compliance with class size with the current funding, and I was just curious why that is. Is it a hiring issue or is it multi-component?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how it is. I said it, I think I was referencing that, or the thing that comes to mind as I'm answering your question too, is that the city budget hasn't been finalized yet. We have heard that part of the savings that the city is making, the money that they're saving is by pushing the timeline for full class size reduction implementation a little bit longer. We haven't heard what the benchmark is that we're trying to get to as a city next year, and that will then impact the number of dollars that are going to come to schools, and also will impact I guess, like two things. One, the rate at which the plans that schools had proposed for class size reduction, it'll impact the degree to which those are able to be fulfilled. And then it'll also impact other things that are related to class size reduction, like maybe finding new spaces or leasing new spaces, building new schools, or doing the work of thinking about utilization. So but we just haven't got that final yet. So I think that that's like what comes to mind, but I'm not sure if I'm.
Yeah, I think
Getting that
you had
exactly.
said something along the lines of just like not being able to comply with class size with the current funding, and I
Yeah.
didn't know what was driving
Oh,
that.
I
What
see.
was the why behind?
Yeah, I think it's, I think that all schools will need additional teachers. And we'll need additional funding to be able to do class conversions, building conversions. So yeah, more is needed for sure.
Okay, thanks. And then my other question was, piggybacking on this after school. I know some schools have Manhattan Youth
Mhm.
that comes in, and it seems to me that those are free programs and I don't know anything about it. I don't know if you do.
Yeah.
Like how it is that a school gets Manhattan Youth to come in. Is it only middle schools?
Only middle schools, yeah, it's only a middle school program.
Okay,
And yep, they just renewed their the contract, and schools are gonna continue to work with their partners, and so it's a really great thing for middle schools.
it is great. It's really remarkable.
Yeah.
I was shocked when I found out that
I
it
know.
does not exist for elementary schools.
Yeah, I wish.
Yeah.
It did. It really should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions for anybody? Well, this was really, really helpful, like.
Sure,
It
yeah.
it was amazing, and
Yeah.
thank you so much for your time in
problem.
being here
Mhm.
and answering all of our questions in great detail.
Yeah.
So we really, really appreciate it.
No problem.
Um,
I'm happy to come back.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you back in a
Yeah.
couple of months, yeah.
Sorry, I was a little late.
That was worked away.
I was
Yeah.
struggling with the machine downstairs. What's that?
Were you with the M15?
No.
I was trapped on.
Oh, okay, M15, there was a major delay.
Oh, was there?
Yeah, so we figured you might be waiting for the M15.
I didn't know that.
I was super late for work today morning too, because there was some signal
Oh, yeah.
problem. So again, I was like waited for 20 minutes. I'm like, I could have probably walked to work in this
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Just to kind of
Every once in a while, you
Put
feel like things are going well.
thing together.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing, let
Uh-huh.
me know if I'm hearing correctly. Two major things going on, is the lack of after-school programs and accessibility to those, and the ability to expand for the smaller class sizes.
Those are big ones.
Mhm.
And I do think that, there's the after school programs don't quite exist in the, wheelhouse of things that we feel like we can control or help to improve. We really just need like a big initiative like we had before to get that done. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you
you,
so much for
thank
your
you.
time.
Yes,
It's
yeah.
wonderful to meet you.
Agenda items.
Just one more.
Oh. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, so district needs, we can have a quick conversation, because as we said, we don't have a quorum right now, so we don't wanna make an official decision. But with whoever's here, based on what we heard, it seems like the two things he pointed out is facilities and support for after-school program, as we also heard from Diane Grayson as well. So anybody have a strong feeling for one or the other? Because we're gonna have to pick, unfortunately, only one.
I mean, my first thing really was capacity, hiring teachers, getting space. I mean, it seems that the next few years are gonna be really accelerating and quickly and trying to figure out what they're doing at the
Yeah,
same
With
time.
the class size mandates.
But I think also after school can fit into that somehow too.
Okay.
I think, because we can tell. a whole
Yeah, we have
story.
we have like little blurbs that we have to write separately.
Because
and
if we're
add
building
into it.
capacity, maybe part of that would be. for
Adding after-school programs to help. or
As part
something
of
like
the
that.
expansion.
Well, it seems like though the after-school program is like delivered by the nonprofits
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
school.
Yeah, so that doesn't really
So-
fall under the government, unless, like he
Right.
said, it needs a huge, big push.
Yeah, but also the government could provide the funding so that the after-school providers could use a sliding scale and still be able to pay
Yeah,
their
yeah,
staff.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. So true.
Yeah.
To compensate for some of that,
Yeah.
to allow sliding scale,
Yeah,
it just seems so right.
yeah,
I'm shocked
Right.
it
I
doesn't
mean, it's-
exist.
I know.
Sounds to me like a
Really
lot
shocking.
of the opportunities for schools to access money is really based around the poverty rate.
of the whole
Yeah,
neighborhood,
yeah,
but if you
that's-
happen to be like
so-
Diane Grayson said,
Right,
somebody
so-
Poverty
who's.
rate is so low.
And it's,
That
and
we
it's
could-
usually like, I mean, like federal money is based on federal
Yeah.
rules, which have nothing to correlate to like the cost of living in New York City.
Yeah.
Right,
Right.
like they're not,
Yeah.
it's not graded in any
Mhm.
way, so.
Yeah.
So then, you're really in kind of a bind in that, like you don't get access to a lot of these supports that are built in for.
And I'm just thinking
Yeah.
about people who
For
have to
schools.
work, both parents. What do they do with kids that are getting out of 2:30 and 3 in the afternoon?
You get an after
Yeah.
school babysitter,
Yeah.
somebody has to pay for that
Really?
for 12 years, yeah.
Wow.
You have to pay for somebody. I mean, when I
And that's
tried to
not-
find it, when she was 3, that was when 3K had just rolled out in like 4 districts, and we happened to live in one of them. So I was able to get her a seat, but I think there was only one school in our whole district that had an after school, because it was within an element, like a Catholic school, so that Catholic school had after school. So you could pay for that component, but like, it was really far away, it was a Catholic school, like, there were a lot of other reasons why it wasn't gonna work, but no other option, and. Unfortunately, that's really difficult infrastructure to build in, I think. I was
Yeah.
just grateful to have a 3K.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll save 25 grand. Some of the hours will be covered.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't also why, like LV and Katie and I all wrote blurbs. I don't wanna like us to steamroll like what LV and Katie
Yeah,
had
No,
worked on.
I actually think that I can go with building the capacity to meet the class size maximums, because, as the superintendent was saying, you need small classes to address students with special needs in
Yeah.
an integrated way. Yeah, so I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why it was great to
Yeah,
have
we
him
could
here
even
and
say
to
that,
hear
integrate it.
Yeah.
other parents, because
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what we needed. Because that's how we should respond, is
Yeah.
what is it? And it seems capacity right now is the most.
Pressing.
And that's how
Yeah.
they can address
Yeah.
a lot of
And then
other.
under capacity, we can
data.
also include, like we said,
Yeah,
the
the
support for after-school
after-school care,
programs.
yeah.
You.
Am I
Yeah.
allowed to comment
Yeah,
during
go
this?
for it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I would just highlight that Kelly said that he interviewed the principals.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which I thought was great that he was able to do that before coming
Yeah.
here, and they had said facilities,
Mhm.
so
Right.
Yeah.
I just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah. Yeah, he
Yeah.
had reached out to a lot of the principals in
Yeah.
our district and and when he said facilities, he also mentioned like
Mhm.
plumbing and water fountain and bathrooms and like all
Correct.
falls under. Yeah.
Which was all
Yeah.
part of, like, that was part of the historical statement, I think.
Yeah.
Related to facility, I mean, it was maybe a little bit
Yeah,
oriented.
but then the
like
facility
playground,
doesn't also
but
like
we
the
can
space.
Just integrate.
Yeah.
them. And I don't know if how LV would feel, but in reading LV's blurb, it felt like we were hitting a lot of similar elements to what had been in the health. needs
Yeah.
statement, and I wondered if there was a way we could integrate those a bit.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
yeah,
youth, children and youth with mental health needs are very
actually, we can
underserved.
include that,
Right.
yeah, what
And
LV
then-
and
yeah.
Mobeen
Yeah.
said, we can include that in the health portion of
Right.
the.
That's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
LV, how do you feel about that? You're on mute.
I can lip read, she said, absolutely.
Sorry about that, but you know, my priority is health, so I would push for that.
Okay,
Okay.
so if we include the substance abuse with youth and children in schools, if we put it in the health section, you're okay with that?
Yes,
Okay. All right,
absolutely.
Huge progress today.
all right, so.
Great school.
Yeah.
I was
All
great
right.
even
This was a good meeting,
I
so.
love to learn.
So let me just see if
Yeah.
I've summarized everything correctly, right? For the needs portions, for the education side, we're gonna pick the facilities as the option, but under the facilities, we're gonna include the after-school programs and the need to have funding for them in there.
Facility capacity.
Facility capacity, yeah, facilities and capacity.
I mean, I don't wanna like step on anyone's toes, but I'm fine with taking the capacity blurb I had, integrating some of what Katie had related to IEPs and talking about how we can address some of these issues if we have
Yeah.
expanded capacity,
Yeah.
and integrating also then from
Good.
last year's needs statement stuff about
Yeah,
facilities.
I think that's a
Does
great
that sound
idea,
like
yeah.
a way to do it?
And then Gloria and I and LV can work, I'm sorry, I volunteered.
You voluntold me, huh?
Oh, yeah. I voluntold you.
I'm always good with a voluntold.
We can work on the health portion of the substance abuse and stuff with the youth portion.
I love that. We're covering
Does that
what we really
sound
felt, even
good?
initially, what was important.
Yeah.
There's no reactions.
Good.
You guys feel? You guys feeling? Stu's in the dark.
Stu, you got a comment, I know you do.
Just the light from the computer on his face. Cat. Okay.
I used up my allocation of words today.
You have extra for today, feel free to go, use it.
I don't think he ever could use up his allocation
Yeah.
of words.
Marty, John, any comments?
I'll let Marty, he's on the committee.
Well, certainly the specific items insofar as education and health make sense. What I didn't ask, what I wanted to ask him but hadn't, was what was going on in regards to bullying in the schools, which is something that we didn't touch on, and that in effect is a part and parcel with the mental health of students. You know,
Oh, yeah, I think I mentioned that. Did I-
okay,
I think I mentioned that in my blurb.
yes, you did, but we didn't ask him.
Yeah, I will say, Marty, that there are studies showing that there's less bullying with smaller class sizes.
Well, that's a good thing.
Mm,
And also
Okay.
that not having
Yeah.
access to those phones all day has got to help.
yeah.
Because they do it a lot on social media stuff. so.
Yeah, the cyberbullying is a
Yeah,
big
yeah.
thing. And my general comment is this was a great meeting and I'm really glad you got Kelly here. He's
Yeah.
he has infinite time for people, which is
It's terrific.
something,
Yeah, we really, really appreciated him coming here and taking all this time to talk to us. It was really great and
Great education.
yeah, and learned so much from him. All right. So moving on, Chair's report, Wade, we've been here long enough. Old and new business, anybody have any old and new business?
I'm gonna table mine for next month.
All right. All right, and in that case, I think we're ready to adjourn the meeting? Unless anybody,
I just want to say I'm traveling in a few weeks for a medical mission in the Philippines, so I'm not gonna be
Your
here.
annual thing, yeah.
Sending so much luck for
Alright.
that, Elvie.
Thank you.
That's wonderful.
Thank you, Elvie.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kate, you had something.
There is like a new bill being drafted in the US Congress to reverse the exclusions for immigrants to be eligible for Medicaid and food stamps and WIC that were actually implemented. There were new restrictions put in
Mhm.
1996, so to reverse those and also take out the further restrictions that the Trump administration put in. And they are looking for more co-sponsors.
Oh.
So I don't know, given that this is an election year, whether we could even, write a resolution to Congressman Nadler, asking him to co-sponsor, or if he's like, just can't do that now because.
I wonder if we
leaving
should put out
office.
feelers about
Yeah.
who's, paying attention to this and
Yeah.
maybe would be willing to sponsor.
Yeah.
I'm on the AI
Yeah.
thing huge. I'm just never shutting up about
Yeah.
that till I've got everyone doing that. Protecting
Yeah.
us from AI.
Yeah,
So can you email me some of that information and then
Yeah.
Yeah,
we
I'd love to
can.
know
yeah,
more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, or you can either send it to the office and they can distribute it to
Yeah,
all
I'd
of
like
us.
to.
Yeah, I think that's the best
Okay.
way. So
yeah,
email. it
Katie,
to-
those were the Clinton, the things that
Yes.
Clinton initially did, right? Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Uh,
So
No,
I
that's a
think
good point. That's a good point.
This is Pramila Jayapal's bill, I think. And they're looking for co-sponsors now, and it seems like that would be, something that Jerry Nadler would really love, because he's always been such an advocate for social supports for people, but I didn't know because he's leaving office if that is even doable at this point.
Okay, so
Can you send that around, that bill?
Yes.
So Katie will send it to the office and then they'll distribute it to all of us, so we'll all get it. Yeah. Right. Yeah, because I think it's worth
Okay.
looking at, yeah.
Absolutely.
Any
Very
other
interesting.
old or new business? Then can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
And meeting adjourned at 8:17 PM.